The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all they that do his commandments. His praise endureth forever. Welcome, friends. I'm your host, Zen Garcia. This is Secrets Revealed on Truth Frequency Radio, and we're greatly honored to have your attention and to have you join us in fellowship this evening. I'm joined again by my good friend and co-host Rob Skiba. We are continuing the Genesis Revisited series. Brother Rob, are you there?
I am here, Zen. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. It's been a really good week. And yourself?
Yeah, doing good. Good word on the fear of the Lord, and beginning to get a little bit in fear of what's going to happen to this country with 117 million Americans vaccinated with the zombie apocalypse.
Right.
I'm listening to the news feed right before we get on. I'm like, oh man, that's like half of America is zombified.
Right. And they have no idea as to the repercussions of their actions.
Really, I mean, I don't. Have you seen the videos going around right now? People are after they get the shot, they put a magnet on their arm, and the magnet sticks to their arm. Have you seen that?
What?
Yeah, there's been
No.
videos going around of people after they get the shot, they get like a refrigerator magnet or whatever and put it on their arm, and it sticks. Something's magnetic in there.
Oh my gosh, that sounds, like heavy metals too.
Metals or nanotech or something. I don't know.
Right.
I've seen a few of the videos passed around. Going, it's
That
a little.
is
Yeah, it's a little
extremely weird.
Little freaky.
Yeah. And of course, there's all these variants, and then there's excuses that they have to alter the vaccine and that people have to take them again. And so they're just going to keep piling on the shots and play it out for as much as they can.
I'm like, guys, I mean, they literally chiseled it in stone. Do you think they were kidding around with the Georgia Guidestones? You think they were just,
Right, exactly.
think it was just a joke, the first commandment? How do you think they're going to do that? Maintain the world population at 500 million. That means 700 billion or 7 billion people got to die for that to happen.
Yeah, and we've been covering that and sharing that, and even when we did the conference, we made highlighted that whole Georgia Guidestones and the 10 Commandments of the New World Order, and for people to not pay attention, to not even know about it, or to just think it's a joke or to laugh it off. I mean, those are some serious.
It's pretty
really
serious
and drastic measures.
Yeah, I mean, it's literally chiseled in stone, and how many languages?
10.
10 languages. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty crazy. These are very strange times. And then the whole thing of the pipeline, I don't know how that's affecting.
Yeah, so far here, I mean, prices have been going up. It's about $1 more than it was last year. I don't see crazy lines. I mean, I just filled up my car yesterday. There was no crazy, no hoarders or anything like that. But it's just one more thing for people to go nuts over.
Yeah, here in Georgia, today, one of my friends told me that her daughter had to wait in line for an hour to get access to gas, and but.
Wow.
Who knows? Supposedly it's going to be all remedied soon.
Yeah.
But who really knows?
I don't watch anything on mainstream TV anymore. Every time I just happen to glimpse at it or something, it's always something that's designed to either get you to hate your brother, they're forcing a race war, or it's something to be in fear about. I'm like, the less I'm on social media and the less I'm looking at the news, the happier I am. That's not putting my head in the sand. It's simply recognizing that it is called television programming for a reason, and these people are literally engineering a social disaster.
Right. And they've been telling us forever long that they wanted to do this. And it's been planned out for even hundreds of years if you go by the protocols. And so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, it seems like we have reached that time, because certainly the economic crisis and all of the masses in the streets and rioting and looting and burning and pillaging, well, certainly, we saw all that go down over the past year. So,
Yeah, I mean, it's really tempting again to think, okay, this is it, it's the end of the world, as usual.
hmm
And I get so frustrated because I'm working so hard on seed and all these other things, and I'm going, really, is this
right.
really it? But every time I get like that, every time I kind of like wig out, going, what am I doing here? If tomorrow's the apocalypse, why am I working on this? I just look over,
Uh-huh.
I'm like, well, Disney's not quitting,
Right.
Hollywood's not quitting. The Mandalorian's still going. I mean, it's like I'm going to start watching and see what they're doing, because if I see all
Uh-huh.
I see if I see all of them heading for the hills and like freaking out, then I'm going to be like, okay, it's time to quit. But as long
Right.
as they're pumping out their media, I'm going to be busy
hmm
pumping out mine. So that's sort of
Yeah,
the
me
way I'm
too.
thinking
I'm
about it
with
right
you.
now.
I'm gonna keep working and keep being as productive as possible. Certainly not just gonna roll over or lay down and die and just wait for it to smash me in the face. I'm gonna do what I can to make a change and to help as many people as I can.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well, this week I've been really busy, kind of polishing up some remaining things on the Paradise Lost video. That's pretty much done. I mean, we're working on the 5.1 surround sound mix and the Atmos mix, but
Nice.
for all intents and purposes, it's done. For a stereo mix anyway. And
hmm
so I've entered it into about 17 or 18 film festivals
Awesome, brother.
around the world. Yeah, yesterday in multiple categories. So
Uh-huh.
hopefully that will gain us some more recognition, and maybe even win an award or two. That might help, but at least get the word out to a whole lot more people. So, and fortunately, I caught it just in time too. I found a website called filmfreeway.com, and it allows you to set up an account for free. It's kind of like IMDb, where you can list your projects and your credentials and whatnot. But
Uh-huh.
it's a huge database of film festivals all over the world. So, and it has a pretty comprehensive filter setup that you can customize the filters so you can zero in on the type of film festival that would be perfect for your project. And so
See?
I did that, found a whole bunch of them. Several of them were Christian festivals, most of them were secular, but I'm like, I don't care either way. I just want to get it out there.
Right. Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
spent a lot of time doing that, and fortunately, I did it when I did, because most of them this month is the cutoff date for submissions. So and some of them are like the 15th, 2 more days. So I literally caught it just in time to beat the deadlines for
Fantastic.
a lot of these. So yeah, we'll see what happens. And most of these events are happening between June and December of this year. A few of them in January and February of next year. But yeah, hopefully something will come out of it.
Yeah, I think that something good will happen. And you catching it right in the nick of time, that no coincidences, everything
Yeah.
works in the way it's supposed to. So, yeah, that's wonderful. Do you know about how many submissions?
Well, I don't know. A lot of these websites are, they're lamenting the issues of COVID, and how, like especially last year,
Right.
hardly anybody did it. Your conference is like one of the very few of any genre that actually had a live conference last year.
Right.
So
That actually went down.
they're all like, well, depending on how things go, we don't know what's going to happen. So, a lot of them may go virtual or whatever. But what's cool about the Film
hmm
Freeway system is, like, I don't have to send any like hard copy DVDs or scripts or anything. It's all on the website. So when you enter a
So,
contest through that website, everything you need to send is hosted on the website. So when the film festival
see.
gets your submission, they just look at your profile that has your video and your PDF, already there. So,
Oh man, that's awesome.
yeah, some of the local festivals, Dallas and Austin, I'll probably see about attending in person. The other ones,
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if I'll bother messing around with travel. Just the way things are
Yeah,
right now. But
especially with the vaccine requirements and all.
yeah, I mean, some of the
Yeah.
airlines aren't too bad. Like I when I went to Florida, Spirit Airlines was fine. They didn't require. I mean, you had to wear a mask and
Oh, that's good.
to get on, but you know, uh, long before COVID though, I was wearing masks on planes anyway. Uh, just
Oh, really?
just well, I mean, as a missionary traveling the world and
Hmm.
spending so much time in airplanes, inevitably there's that person next to you or behind you sneezing and coughing their brains out.
Yeah.
And what do you know? A week after I get back from the trip, I get a cold. So I'm like, well, okay. So I mean, probably 10 years ago, I started wearing masks on planes. So that's not a big deal. I don't wear masks out and about or to stores or anything like that. But uh, that being a requirement on a plane is, I'm like, okay, so what? I mean, I've been doing that anyway. But as long as they're not making you show a card or do a test or something like that, then it's not a big deal.
Right, right, right. Well, I wish you luck, and I know that the all of what you have done is fantastic work, and so I think that people will recognize your talent, and that the accolades are only just now going to start coming in. So I think that windows of opportunity will be presenting themselves going forward. So um, certainly we should definitely ask the audience to pray for blessings upon you and your project, and I know that many people will, and yeah, I can only see good things going forward, brother. So
Yeah, thanks.
excited for you.
Yeah, pretty excited about it. So moving forward, I also
Yeah.
started well, because the next thing that happens after the encounter in Solomon Islands there, that's the teaser. And then you go to open title credits. You come back from that to Act One, and we come back from the commercial break to um, that the main character who was the pilot of the plane is Lieutenant Kane. His son Norman, 60 years later, is on the public speaking circuit, and he's talking about his father's
Mhm.
encounters in the Solomon Islands and relating that to Genesis 6 and stuff like that. And that particular character is essentially me.
Uh-huh.
He serves the function of me, being the sort of bringing in some of the research to the storyline. And so I'm like, well, it's already me. So and that whole segment, that whole scene takes place in a conference hall. So I'm like, well, I can build that. So I've been working on building a 1,000 seat conference room with packed out audience and big screen, projector screens on the side and a podium, and created a character that's sort of a hybrid look of myself and the captain of that airplane, the commander of the airplane, Lieutenant Kane.
Hmm.
So it doesn't look exactly like, it's not supposed to look exactly like me, but it looks close. People are like, hey, that looks like you. And so I bought a motion capture suit, and the new iPhones have this software that you don't need to put the dots or anything on your face like what I had to do with the other guys in South Africa. It just reads your face, so I can record the lines, and the iPhone will record the movement of my face that I can then transfer onto the CGI character of myself,
Nice.
of Norman. And with the motion capture suit, which I just unboxed it, I haven't put it on yet. I haven't fired it up yet, but I've been, open up the boxes and looking at everything. I'm like, whoa, this looks really cool. So as I'm building out the auditorium in 3D, I just imported the character into it, and that's a lot of what in CGI in the 3D modeling. Everything's polygons. It's a grid of polygons that you put textures on. And with 1,000 chairs and the auditorium and the characters and the hair and the clothing and everything else, I'm like, that's just ridiculously huge file. So I'm like, yeah, and I got a really powerful computer, but it's chugging down on that. So I'm like, okay, I gotta look into some possible upgrades if I'm going to do this myself, or see if I can maybe find a good render farm that I can export to. But anyway, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to see if I can do it myself, at least that portion of it.
Well, technology is amazing, and learning about how to do all of that is that just adds on to your resume and your skill set, and being able to do what you do. So yeah, it's amazing that one person can do so much now with the tools that are available.
Well, and that's what I kind of want to prove. If nothing else, just to prove to myself that
Yeah.
wow. I mean, look how far technology has come. That you could do something like this with your home computer.
Right. Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. Any idea as to the next episode, or when
Well, that's
that will
like I said, I'm
be?
gonna if I can figure that out. A portion,
Hmm.
probably I don't know, a good 5 or 6 minutes, I could release from myself. Yeah, people are telling me to use
Uh-huh.
Blender. Blender, yeah, I mean it's the same problem. Blender is a free software, which it's amazing. The things you can do with Blender is incredible. Somebody in the chat room was mentioning it. I barely know my way around it. I have to spend a lot more time going through tutorials and stuff like that. But you still
Yeah.
run into the same problem. So as far as file sizes and assets and all that kind of stuff and render time. But yeah, I mean, if I could get this done myself, then maybe a few more months from now we can have the next chapter out probably. But
Sweet. Sweet.
everything's taking way too long because I don't have a budget. If I had
Hmm. Right.
Star Wars, Clone Wars, they had a $1 to $3 million per 26-minute episode budget, with over 250 people working on each episode.
Hmm.
My last project, I had a $100,000 budget with 25 people working on it. So it's the way they're able to get 10, 15, 20 episodes out in a year is because they have
Yeah.
the budget to do it and the people to work on it.
Right. Right.
So
Well, at least
that's
you
my next
have
stage.
the first one done,
Yeah,
and you have something to present and to give people an idea. So that will open the doors for you to be able to get the budget you need to continue with the work,
yeah, yeah.
prayerfully.
Yeah, well, that's every day, Okay, Father,
Yeah. Yeah.
help me out
Absolutely.
here.
Right. Well, do you remember where we left off?
Yeah. Let me pull it up on my side here. I believe the next thing is Jubilees 32. We only did I think we did one chapter in maybe in Joshua, one in Jubilees, and we talked about a whole lot of stuff
Yeah, we covered a lot.
last time. Yeah. So in the next chapter that we're on in Genesis is 36. So I think before we can read Genesis 36, I think I have to read at least Jubilees 32, I believe. So I got that queued up. I can start there if you want.
All right, sounds good.
All right. Jubilees 32. Let me just make sure this is Jubilees and not Joshua. Yep, Jubilees. Okay. And he abode that night at Bethel, and Levi dreamed that they had ordained and made him the priest of the Most High God, him and his sons forever. And he awoke from his sleep and blessed the Lord. And Jacob rose early in the morning on the 14th of this month, and he gave a tithe of all that came with him, both of men and cattle, both of gold and every vessel and garment. Yea, he gave tithes of all. And in those days Rachel became pregnant with her son Benjamin. And Jacob counted his sons from him upwards, and Levi fell to the portion of the Lord, and his father clothed him in the garments of the priesthood, and filled his hands. And on the 15th of this month he brought to the altar 14 oxen from amongst the cattle, and 28 rams, and 49 sheep, and 7 lambs, and 21 kids of the goats, and a burnt offering on the altar of sacrifice, well pleasing for a sweet savor before God. This was his offering, in consequence of the vow which he had vowed, that he would give a tenth with their fruit offerings and their drink offerings. And when the fire had consumed it, he burnt incense on the fire over the fire, and for a thank offering 2 oxen and 4 rams and 4 sheep, 4 he-goats and 2 sheep of a year old, and 2 kids of the goats, and thus he did daily for 7 days. And he and his sons and his men were eating this with joy there during 7 days, and blessing and thanking the Lord, who had delivered him out of all his tribulation and given him his vow. And he tithed all the clean animals and made a burnt sacrifice, but the unclean animals he gave not to Levi his son, and he gave him all the souls of the men. And Levi charged the priestly office at Bethel before Jacob his father in presence of his 10 brothers, and he was a priest there. And Jacob gave his vow. Thus he tithed again the tithes to the Lord, and sanctified it, and it became holy unto him. And for this reason it is ordained on the heavenly tablets as a law for the tithing again, the tithe to eat before the Lord from year to year, in the place where it is chosen that his name should dwell. And to this law there is no limit of days forever. This ordinance is written that it may be fulfilled from year to year in eating and the second tithe before the Lord in the place where it has been chosen, and nothing shall remain over from it from this year to the year following. For in its year shall the seed be eaten till the days of gathering of the seed of the year, and the wine till the days of the wine, and the oil till the days of its season. And all that is left thereof and becomes old, let it be regarded as polluted, let it be burnt with fire, for it is unclean. And thus let them eat it together in the sanctuary, and let them not suffer it to become old. And all the tithes of the oxen and sheep shall be holy unto the Lord, and shall belong to his priests, which they will eat before him from year to year. For thus is it ordained and engraven regarding the tithe on the heavenly tablets. And on the following night, on the 22nd day of this month, Jacob resolved to build that place, and to surround the court with a wall, and to sanctify it, and make it holy forever, for himself and his children after him. And the Lord appeared to him by night, and blessed him, and said unto him, Thy name shall not be called Jacob, but Israel shall they name thy name. That's weird. And he said unto him again, I am the Lord who created the heaven and the earth, and I will increase thee and multiply thee exceedingly, and kings shall come forth from thee, and they shall judge everywhere, wherever the foot of the sons of men has trodden. And I will give to thy seed all the earth which is under heaven, and they shall judge all the nations according to their desires, and after that they shall get possession of the whole earth, and inherit it forever. And he finished speaking with him, and he went up from him, and Jacob looked till he had ascended into heaven. That's interesting. And he saw in a vision of the night, and behold, an angel descended from heaven with 7 tablets in his hands, and he gave them to Jacob, and he read them, and knew all that was written therein, which would befall him and his sons throughout all the ages. And he showed him all that was written on the tablets, and said unto him, Do not build this place, and do not make it an eternal sanctuary, and do not dwell here, for this is not the place. Go to the house of Abraham thy father, and dwell with Isaac thy father, until the day of the death of thy father. For in Egypt thou shalt die in peace, and in this land thou shalt be buried with honor in the sepulchre of thy fathers with Abraham and Isaac. Fear not, for as thou hast seen and read it, thus shall it all be. And do thou write down everything as thou hast seen and read. And Jacob said, Lord, how can I remember all that I have read and seen? And he said unto him, I will bring all things to thy remembrance. And he went up from him, and he awoke from his sleep, and he remembered everything which he had read and seen. And he wrote down all the words which he had read and seen. And he celebrated there yet another day, and he sacrificed thereon according to all that he sacrificed on the former days, and called its name Addition, for this day was added, and the former days he called the feast. And thus it was manifested that it should be, and it is written on the heavenly tablets. Wherefore it was revealed to him that he should celebrate it, and add it to the 7 days of the feast. And its name was called Addition, because that it was recorded amongst the days of the feast days, according to the number of the days of the year. And in the night, on the 23rd of this month, Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and they buried her beneath the city under the oak of the river. And he called the name of this place the river of Deborah, and the oak of the mourning of Deborah. And Rebekah went and returned to her house to his father Isaac, and Jacob sent by her hand rams and sheep and he goats, that she should prepare a meal for his father, such as he desired.
All right. We'll be right back, everyone, for a second.
Extendivite, a 7-herb combination made from garlic, cayenne, hawthorn, bilberry, ginkgo biloba, valerian, and milk thistle. Extendivite feeds our body with the right nutrients to keep us healthy. Just listen to what Arthur has to say.
I was just calling to tell you what a great product you have. I had used this about 10 years ago after I had congestive heart failure. And it fixed me up and got me going for the last 10 years. Lately, I've been having heart trouble again, so I placed another order because this was the only thing that ever worked. And I just wanted to let you know that you have a great product.
To order, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822, or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendovite.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have hard water, the Lime Scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate Lime Scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death. This is Uncle Walt from the Ironworks. Josh, Corey, and I have chosen to look at life with no fear. No fear of the unknown. No fear of questions about the supposedly well-known. No fear of ridicule for thinking outside the familiar fool's lines. No fear of the boot on the neck of those refusing the party line. No fear of taking on those so convinced of their beliefs they would sooner drink the Kool-Aid than believe they've been fools made. In this world filled with me too, cattle think, can truth's protective layers be peeled back to show the tender, juicy pink? Are we all just grist for the mill? Souls sold against our will, or is that just how it feels? When you're filled to the rim with triviality so fear-filled and grim, break clear of the fear, right here, Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 a.m. on TFR. Josh and I and you will hammer out the impurities of technology-driven groupthink, fold in a dash of logic, and quench it all with a bit of absurdity. The Ironworks. Break clear of the fear.
Real people, real radio.
Initiating the truth frequency.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
And in those days, there were giants in the land, and the sons of the angels of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became of old great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
Here on Earth we're intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. So conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we lost. The teeth might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve and eventually reach what they seek and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they fall, and the works of our hands are but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past time, our lapses, and with it are much of the facts. Some imagine that God's came in alien class.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We have almost reached the end. Rob, I'll turn it back over to you, brother.
Okay. Looks like I think I left off on verse 31. Such as he desired. 32. And he went after his mother till he came to the land of Cabratan, and he dwelt there. And Rachel bare a son in the night, and called his name Son of My Sorrow, for she suffered in giving him birth. But his father called his name Benjamin, on the 11th of the 8th month, in the first of the 6th week of this Jubilee. And Rachel died there, and she was buried in the land of Ephrath, the same is Bethlehem. And Jacob built a pillar on the grave of Rachel, on the road above her grave. Yeah, I think that that doesn't quite catch us up, because Isaac dies by the end of Genesis 35. So Isaac's still alive so far. I'll keep reading till Isaac dies. And Jacob went chapter 33. And Jacob went and dwelt in the south of Magdala-Deref, something like that. and he went to his father Isaac, he and Leah his wife, on the new moon of the 10th month. And Reuben saw Bilhah, Rachel's maid, the concubine of his father, bathing in water in a secret place, and he loved her. And he hid himself at night, and he entered the house of Bilhah at night, and he found her sleeping alone on a bed in her house. And he lay with her, and she awoke and saw, and behold, Reuben was laying with her in the bed, and she uncovered the border of her covering, and seized him, and cried out, and discovered that it was Reuben. And she was ashamed because of him, and released her hand from him, and he fled. And she lamented because of this thing exceedingly, and did not tell it to anyone. And when Jacob returned and sought her, she said unto him, I am not clean for thee, for I have been defiled as regards thee. For Reuben has defiled me, and he has lain with me in the night, and I was asleep, and I did not discover until he uncovered my skirt and slept with me. And Jacob was exceedingly wroth with Reuben, because he had lain with Bilhah, because he had uncovered his father's skirt. And Jacob did not approach her again, because Reuben had defiled her. And as for any man who uncovers his father's skirt, his deed is wicked exceedingly, for he is abominable before the Lord. For this reason it is written and ordained on the heavenly tablets, that a man should not lie with his father's wife, and should not uncover his father's skirt, for this is unclean. They shall surely die together, the man who lies with his father's wife, and the woman also, for they have wrought uncleanness on the earth. And there shall be nothing unclean before our God in the nation which he has chosen for himself as a possession. And again it is written a second time, Cursed be he who lieth with the wife of his father, for he hath uncovered his father's shame. And all the holy ones of the Lord said, So be it, so be it. And do thou, Moses, command the children of Israel that they observe this word, for it entails a punishment of death, and it is unclean, and there is no atonement forever to atone for the man who has committed this, but it is he to be put to death and slain, and stoned with stones, and rooted out from the midst of the people of our God. For to no man who does so in Israel is it permitted to remain alive a single day on the earth, for he is abominable and unclean. And let them not say to Reuben was granted life and forgiveness after he had lain with his father's concubine, and to her also, though she had a husband, and her husband Jacob his father was still alive. For until that time there had not been revealed the ordinance and judgment and law in its completeness for all, but in thy days it has been revealed, as a law of seasons and of days, and an everlasting law for the everlasting generations. And for this law there is no consummation of days, and no atonement for it, but they must both be rooted out in the midst of the nation on the day wherein they committed it, they shall slay them. And do thou, Moses, write it down for Israel, that they may observe it, and do accordingly to these words, and not commit a sin unto death. For the Lord our God is judge, who respects not persons and accepts not gifts. And tell them these words of the covenant, that they may hear and observe, and be on their guard with respect to them, and not be destroyed and rooted out of the land for an uncleanness and an abomination, and a contamination, and a pollution are all they who commit it on the earth before our God. And there is no greater sin than the fornication which they commit on earth, for Israel is a holy nation unto the Lord its God, and a nation of inheritance, and a priestly and royal nation, and for his own possession. And there shall no such uncleanness appear in the midst of the holy nation. And in the 3rd year of this 6th week, Jacob and all his sons went and dwelt in the house of Abraham, near Isaac his father, and Rebekah his mother. And these were the names of the sons of Jacob, the firstborn, Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, Zebulun, the sons of Leah, and the sons of Rachel, Joseph and Benjamin, and the sons of Bilhah, Dan and Naphtali, and the sons of Zilpah, Gad and Asher, and Dinah, the daughter of Leah, the only daughter of Jacob. And they came and bowed themselves to Isaac and Rebekah. And when they saw them, they blessed Jacob and all his sons, and Isaac rejoiced exceedingly, for he saw the sons of Jacob, his younger son, and blessed them. And in the 6th year of this week of this 44th Jubilee, Jacob sent his sons to pasture their sheep, and his servants with them to the pastures of Shechem. And the 7 kings of the Amorites assembled themselves together against them to slay them, hiding themselves under the trees, and to take their cattle as prey. And Jacob and Levi and Joseph were in the house with Isaac their father, for his spirit was sorrowful, and they could not leave him. And Benjamin was the youngest, and for this reason remained with his father. And there came the kings of... Wait a minute, did they just say that? Spirit was... So his father's still alive here. So it looks like Jubilees is about to go into this big slaughter fest that we read at length in Jubilees.
Right.
Let me pause here before we do that, because I don't want to forget. Let me just make a note for myself here. Chapter. Are you aware of in the was it chapter 32, the writings of Jacob? Because it said that he wrote all this stuff down that he was shown in the heavenly tablets.
Only in that there is a testament of Jacob. That is part of the testament of the patriarchs and the prophets that we put together. And yeah, it does cover some of that material, as I recall.
Because whatever he was shown, it looked like he was being shown the whole history of his descendants,
of his people. Yeah, and that actually, the testament of Jacob is also, it is messianic as well.
Huh. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting. If you want to check it out, you should have the book. So.
Yeah, I believe I do.
Well, I mean, not right now, but.
Yeah. Speaking of the stuff that you sent me, that on the priesthood of Jesus, we actually ended up talking about that at some length in our virtual house church. It came up.
Really?
I think, like I told you, Juan Carlos is one of my co-hosts with me.
Yeah.
And he's been on the path for quite some time now. He's the first that had said that made me aware of. I mean, even though Scripture clearly says Mary is cousin to Elizabeth, and Elizabeth, her husband was the high priest,
right.
So therefore Mary has to be related, blood related to Levi, right, as well as Judah.
Right.
Scripture tells you that, quite clearly, but we never think about it that way. I mean, at least I never did. And Juan Carlos was bringing up a lot of stuff from Scripture about that over the last few virtual house churches. And I was like, yeah, dude, there's this document that Zen told me about, and I sent it off to him. But boy, people get wigged out, man. Like, people in the chat room just exploded, like, about the continued virginity of Mary, which is something I've been opposed to myself in the past, and mainly because clearly he has brothers and sisters. But as talking with you and other people, and actually Dr. Singenis was really trying to convince me of this for quite some time when he's trying to convert me to Catholicism. I'm like, yeah, that's not happening, dude. I'm never converting to Catholicism, but he did have some interesting documents that he was talking about regarding the half-brothers and sisters, that they were of Joseph's previous marriage. He was a widow. He was a widower. He was an older gentleman, and he had taken on the custody of Mary, and that she didn't know a man after that. So I don't know enough about biology. Forgive me. Maybe I'm ignorant on this, but as I understand, a virgin, without getting too graphic, has something down there that gets broken. The first time they have intercourse. How is that not broken when they have a baby? Did it grow back? I mean, I don't like. It's
again, the conception was that she was to be a virgin and remain a virgin. I mean, that's why even, in the latter part of her life, she was referred to as the virgin. And
but she had a baby, so you would think that the baby going through there would break that, that piece of skin.
Yeah, you would. But again, as far as the conception, if in reading the infancy gospels, she didn't even have any pain, according to the manuscript, and there's several, again, as far as the infancy gospels, there's several different versions, and the conception was immaculate, and for whatever reason she was to remain a virgin, and Christ not being like a regular human, I'm guessing that his entrance into the world was not like a regular baby, but I don't know with any certainty, but certainly the scriptures and also the history of it declares that she was a virgin and remained a virgin. And yes, as you said, there's many accounts that refer to Joseph as an elderly man, and that he was widowed, and he had children that were even older than Mary, and that his youngest children were the age of Yahushua, James and Thomas, which would, Thomas was known as his twin. James was the younger, called the younger, and they were two that even grew to be apostles, and James became the first bishop of the Jerusalem church as well. And both of them, James wrote the Protevangelium, and Thomas wrote many of the infancy gospels, and they grew up with Mary as their stepmother and Christ as their stepbrother.
Whoa, so, I didn't know Thomas wrote the infancy gospels.
Oh yeah, and James as well.
So
the Protevangelium of James.
So you're saying that they were of course older, probably in their teens when Yeshua was born. Sons of Joseph.
Yeah, they were similar in age. Yeah.
But they were sons of Joseph from his previous marriage, and a number of years older than Yeshua, so they would have been around to write those, to document his early life. That's interesting. I never, so much of stuff we have to unlearn and have to, because in many church circles, anything outside the 66, even though King James ship with 80, is taboo. It's like, don't read no Maccabees. Don't read the Maccabees. That's in the Catholic Bible. That was kind of the it was kind of the thing growing up Baptist. In a King James only, King James, a reduced King James only, because they, even though they're King James only, they would never go to the 80 books. It was always just the 66.
Right.
So anything outside of Scripture was taboo, and most of it was labeled Gnostic.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And most people have not even read it, and yet they condemn a lot of the infancy gospels. There's a manuscript called The History of Joseph the Carpenter, where Yahushua is recalling the history of his father-in-law to the apostles, and he gives the account, and then in that account he tells about how Joseph was an elderly widowed man, when he accepted, well, reluctantly accepted, he was chosen supernaturally. His staff bloomed a rose bloom, and then a dove, and as far as the Holy Spirit landed upon it, and this was in the sight of all of Israel, and that was the sign that he was to be the caretaker and the guardian of Mary. And this he did, and because he was elderly, he died, not many years after being the caretaker and raising both Mary and Christ. And that's why we see when he is in the Passion and dying on the cross, he appoints John to be the caretaker of his mother. And she, again, in her elderly age, she was known as the Virgin, because it was confirmed before the Pharisees and the midwives. And even in the story of the infancy Gospels, that there were two midwives there at the birth, and they didn't believe that, she could be and remain a perpetual virgin, and they doubted, and in whatever manner the midwives check to, I guess, see that the hymen is still in place or intact or whatever, because they did that with royalty as well. They did confirm, and this is also part of the infancy accounts as well.
Yeah,
Salome was one of them. She was also a cousin of Mary, and then she actually stayed with Christ and Mary to help in raising him. She made a pact and made a vow to, dedicate herself to the raising of Christ, because she knew he was Messiah.
Yeah, it's all fascinating stuff. As a Baptist that was never allowed to look at that stuff, seeing it now, I still approach everything with a pretty healthy dose of skepticism and want to know, well, where does this date to, and how far back do we understand this, and trying to be wary of anything that may be propaganda of the Catholic Church or what have you. But it does seem to me that there is quite a number of texts out there that I'm now becoming more and more aware of. But man, my chat room exploded. People just went ballistic. I'm like, oh, for crying out loud! It's like you can't talk about anything.
Right.
But getting back to this, chapter 33, the issue of Reuben going to Jacob's handmaid. Because the angels are talking to Moses here, and they're like, well, now everybody's got to be put to death if anybody does this. Moses is given the command to tell the people of Israel after the Exodus, don't do this. And they said, this is a death sentence. And the angels like, don't think just because this is a death sentence, don't be thinking how come it didn't happen to Reuben then, or to Bilhah. And they're like, because at that time it hadn't been laid down as a law yet. Even though, like, God is eternal and he knows what he wants to do, Yahuwah, from beginning to end, it hadn't been set out as a law on earth for people to do. So there's always this first precedence situation, which in my mind, because a lot of people, especially since now that I have the same understanding you do of Genesis 3:15, that because one of the, it's like, well, how come Satan doesn't get if Satan was in fact had relationships with Eve, how come Satan didn't get put in Tartarus like the angels of Genesis 6? And I'm like, well, there's usually a first precedence, and after that, it's like, okay, you got away with it. He still had a punishment, but not the punishment. And then it was written down in the heavenly tablets. Hey, listen, the angels of heaven were very much aware of it by the time you get to Genesis 6. Because Jaza specifically said, look, I have a feeling you guys aren't going to go through with it, and I alone will pay the price for this. And he says, great sin. So at this time, it had been laid down that, don't do that. Yes. So, while humankind was new on earth, it's Adam and Eve, the first two people. And so, Satan starts testing his boundaries and, did what he wasn't supposed to do. And he got a bit of a slapdown for it, but he didn't get Tartarus. And I maintain that he's probably going to do something again in the last days, which is why he does get Tartarus for 1,000 years. You know, because Tartarus is the prescribed judgment for that specific sin of angels mating with humans. There are other places in Hades that are for judgment, but Tartarus is a specific, deepest, level of Hades, of severe torment, specifically allocated to angels who commit that sin. And so the angels of Genesis 6, they knew before they did it that it was a great sin, and then when they were caught in the act, they basically hire Enoch to be their defense attorney, and they're like, dude, please, they're begging for their lives, and Yahuwah's like, okay, I hear your defense, but no, you will not have peace, you will not find forgiveness, this is what's going to happen. You knew going into it, this is what's going to happen to you.
Right.
So they go to Tartarus for 70 generations, and so, because this is the only thing, at least in my mind anyway, that explains why Satan is put into Tartarus for 1,000 years. Because I was always like, we know that his destination is the lake of fire, so why is he put in Tartarus for 1,000 years, then released, and then put in the lake of fire? And to me, the only thing that makes any sense to me is that he must commit that act again post-commandment. The first time was pre-commandment, just like this case with Reuben.
Yes. And the DNA and the genetics, well, that's been the war since, again, the garden, even before the war in heaven with the separation of light and darkness, and then that battle of Legion against the angels of God continues, and it is through humanity. And we see, again, the enmity between the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. It plays out. Let both grow together until the time of the end.
Yeah.
And then in the time of the end, I'll send forth the angels as reapers to gather the tares for burning and the wheat for preservation. And we see the same association with the goat and the sheep. And in Matthew 25, it is repeated at the time of the end. You would send forth the angels to divide. And so we see that in Matthew 13 as well, with the parable of the kingdom and the sower and the tares of the field, and then even the net. And so all throughout the scriptures, we have this bloodline war occurring and taking place. And that's why I believe that, there's very particular and detailed records of the genealogies. And we see, in Luke chapter 3 that Cain is excluded, as is in the Cave of the Treasures and the Book of the Bee, both of which have an extremely detailed account of the genealogies of Christ and Mary and Joseph as well. So very important when you understand that this is, a genetics corrupting the image, and that Christ had to come in to the flesh in order to redeem us, to rectify the fall, and to restore us to our first estate. And so understanding it that way, it, from the end to the beginning, from Eden to Armageddon, it makes a lot more sense. And especially now when you consider that the seed of Cain sitting on the thrones of the world, that they're all blood related. They're cousins and half cousins and families separated, but sitting and controlling the crowns and the thrones of the world, and it's still that way.
Yeah, I gotta say, I've said it before since I've come around to this. It's what makes the most sense to me. Because the evil that particular bloodline is capable of, it seems to know no bounds. It's just it defies logic to think that just regular human beings would be that evil. What goes wrong that makes the only thing that makes any sense to me is that they're of a different seed altogether.
Yeah.
And once I crossed that line, all of a sudden everything started making a lot more sense to me. I'm like, well, of course they, like Jesus himself, Yeshua said, "You are of your father the devil."
Of your father the devil.
That's pretty point blank.
And then he says, that they were the murderers of the prophets going back to the beginning with Abel. And of course, Cain killed Abel. So,
Yeah.
you know, how you can't deny it.
Well, and that was the thing, you know, for all the critics that come after you. I'm like, look, spend some time talking with
Awesome.
Zen, because, you know, yes, you know, you look at all kinds of texts outside the Bible, fine, whatever. But when you were able to just go through the King James Bible alone, even though I was stuck on Genesis 4:1 for a while there, you know, I couldn't escape a lot of the things that are used later. And especially if I'm going to go around saying I take the Bible literally, well, guess what I got to do? You know, I mean, the parable, the sower, the tares, and, you know, the statements that Yeshua would make, they're pretty point blank literal. And at that point, you know, obviously it's just like it just clicks. But you know, I had the problem with Genesis 4:1 until we looked into the Targum.
Right. Yeah. All right, we'll be right back, everyone, for a second.
Truth Frequency Radio is your #1 source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like The Christopher Everard Show, The Covert Report with Susan Lindauer, Enemy Within Radio with Tom Barnes, Freaky Friday with The Woo Crew, The Gematria Effect with Zachary Hubbard, America's Evil Genius with Travis Cook, Phoenix Rising Radio with Phoenix, Quantum Connections with Lucky, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR-LIVE. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
A milestone in the fight against COVID-19. I'm Lisa Lacera, Fox News. The CDC with a major announcement about masks and who can ditch them.
CDC is updating our guidance for fully vaccinated people. Anyone who is fully vaccinated can participate in indoor and outdoor activities, large or small, without wearing a mask or physical distancing.
Director Rochelle Walensky, but she says in certain situations, like on public transportation, masks should still be worn. President Biden called it a great day for America and said if you haven't been vaccinated, wear a mask for your own protection and for those around you who are not vaccinated.
It's not an enforcement thing. We're not going to go out and arrest people. But the fact of the matter is, I still believe the vast majority of the American people care about the safety of their neighbors and care about the safety of their families.
The president again said he'd like to see 70% of Americans with at least one dose of vaccine by July 4th. Earlier today, the president tried to calm fears after the cyber attack on a major fuel line owned by Colonial Pipeline that shut the line down for several days. The shutdown triggered a run on gas.
I know seeing lines at the pumps or gas stations with no gas can be extremely stressful, but this is a temporary situation. Do not get more gas than you need in the next few days.
GasBuddy.com is reporting nearly 70% of North Carolina stations were without gas and 73% out in Washington, D.C. The president said he doesn't believe the Russian government was involved, but said he believed the hackers live in Russia. Philadelphia's health commissioner Thomas Farley has resigned after Mayor Jim Kenney says he learned human remains from the 1985 bombing of the headquarters of the Black Back to Nature group MOVE had been cremated and disposed of without family notification. America is listening to Fox News.
Into the truth frequency.
Your protection from deception. This is Truth Frequency Radio.
All right, welcome back everybody for second hour. One thing with regard to the Targum is that it does clearly show and cover that Cain is of a different bloodline and lineage, and this is also, in my opinion, once you're open to the idea, it's very clear in the scriptures as well, and in the King James, we see that Cain's bloodline is found in Genesis chapter 4, and then we see that Adam's is in Genesis chapter 5, and the 10 generations of Cain, I believe, are shown to be separated, and then his being left out of the lineage of Messiah. There's specific reasons for that, but I do understand it is a controversial subject, and that a lot of people, for whatever reason, are against it as possibility. But when you do open yourself to it, I think it does explain the scriptures in a manner that helps to really make sense of everything and to tie it all together in one puzzle of truth.
Oh, it really does. I mean, this last 5-6 years or so has been there's been a lot of that going on, with coming to certain revelations from Scripture just being keys to unlocking so much other things. Biblical cosmology being a huge portion of that. But this also, this issue of serpent seed. Some people in the chat room, one's like, dude, you're going to send me down a research rabbit hole. Yep. Of course, we're doing your radio show right now, but we're streaming, also streaming on my YouTube channel. So for people who are watching this on my YouTube channel that may not be as familiar with your work, what resources would you point them to? Because another person's like, wait, if Eve slept with the serpent, I feel like that would be the most important part of the story. Why wouldn't Moses mention it? Great question. What if he did mention it and it just got erased? Or translated differently. So if you want to, for the sake of my audience that may be in shock right now for some of this stuff, it's maybe new to them, share just briefly, your take on the Genesis 4:1 issue and where they can go to find out more information.
Yeah, sure. Well, the Great Contest 2, Enmity Between the Seed Lines, if you get that book, it literally has hundreds of sources which confirm this. And as far as Genesis 4:1, in looking back again at the Targum, which is 2,000 years older than the King James, and the first translation of the Hebrew scriptures into Aramaic, in Genesis 4:1 it says, and Adam knew Hava meaning life giver, and his wife, who had desired the angel, and there's a semicolon there, and she bare and conceived Cain and said, I have received a man from the angel of the Lord. And then the second verse is, and then she added to bear from her husband Abel. And so there's a clear distinction that Cain is of the wicked one, exactly as it says in 1 John chapter 3. Cain was of the wicked one. That word "of" there meaning offspring, child, or progeny, or descendant of, and it shows that the patrilineal connection. And so and then also in Genesis 3:15 in the Aramaic Targum it says, and I will put enmity between thy seed and her seed, and thy son and her sons. And we see that it says her sons because Cain kills his half-brother Abel. And then Cain, also Cain in the Hebrew, means possession or acquired, as in a stepchild. And then the Sheth means substitution, replacement, or compensation, which is exactly what he was for Abel. And we see that he was born in the likeness and the similitude of Adam. And also in Genesis chapter 5, where it speaks about the genealogies, in the Targum it mentions that Cain, who murdered his half brother Abel, was not genealogized in the genealogy of Adam, and that he was not his child or his offspring, and that's why he's excluded. Which again, when you understand this and you understand that the serpent, as it says in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 2 and 3, Paul insinuates that the reason Eve was not a chaste virgin is because she was seduced by the serpent. And that word seduce is in the Greek expatio, and it means wholly seduced, which is exactly what she was. And this is confirmed in Maccabees as well, the wife of the Rabbi Eleazar, who was the high priest that was killed during the time of the Maccabean Wars with his 7 sons. His wife Salomonia speaks about how the serpent beguiled Eve, and that this was common knowledge. We also find this in the Protevangelium of James, when Joseph comes home. Joseph, the one that was caretaker of Mary, when he comes home and finds Mary pregnant, he says, "Has not the story of Adam been repeated in me?" In that his finding Eve already pregnant by the serpent. And so this again was common knowledge, and this information was well accepted and well known in the earlier times, and it's only been after the translations and the languages and this knowledge becoming hidden and kind of removed or misconstrued and muddled in because I do believe it was covered up and hidden. But this knowledge is still encoded even in the King James version and in the English modern versions. And when you look at and compare and parallel account and read, and then especially in Matthew chapter 13, where Christ tells you that the enemy snuck into the garden and sowed the tares, and that in the parable of the tares of the field, that the devil, the enemy, which is the devil, is the father of the tares.
Yeah.
And then he tells you over, there's 3 different accounts in Matthew 13 where this is repeated, and he tells them after the multitudes are sent away, and the apostles come up to him and ask him, "What do you mean about the tares of the field? We don't understand. Explain it to us." And that's where he goes in and tells them very clearly, without parable or without metaphor, that indeed the devil is the enemy, which the enemy that snuck into the garden in the parable of the sower and the kingdom, and that again he is the father of the tares, which we see in 1 John chapter 3, that Cain was of that wicked one. And so you have all the language, and again, as we made mention, Christ speaking about the Pharisees and saying that they are of their father the devil, and that he was a murderer since the beginning, and that their fathers were the murderers of the prophets, and that going back from Abel to Zacharias, which we know that Zacharias was the father of John the Baptist, murdered in the Holy of Holies, but Abel was murdered by Cain, and so he's associating them to the bloodline and the lineage of Cain. And this is again undeniable when you look at all of the passages and all the scriptures in just the King James. You don't even have to go outside in the extra biblical text to find confirmation of this, but when you do, certainly it is expounded upon everywhere. There's so many sources, and as I said, there's over 200 available in the Great Contest too, the enmity between the seed lines, and the only reason I don't recommend or I recommend that one over Lucifer, father of Cain, which is the first book that I wrote about this topic, is that book is written from a heliocentric perspective, whereas I learned differently
Yeah.
by the time I wrote the Great Contest series.
Yeah, I've got. It's like, do I go back and rewrite all the stuff I did before, or just let it be true to what I understood at that time?
Right.
You know, it's like that. Look, that's what I understood back then. Things have evolved in my mind. I don't think that way anymore.
Exactly.
So just let it stay for what it was, historically speaking, what you wrote before.
Yes, I agree.
But yeah, I was listening to an interview that Anthony Patch had done. Somebody was interviewing him about CERN and his take on what they're going to be doing with the DNA of Nimrod and using it to resurrect Nimrod and create the Antichrist. And I'm not on the same page with Anthony on a number of things, but a lot of stuff that he says is really compelling. And I was like, from a whacked out occult type perspective, what he was saying made a lot of sense to me. If you try to put yourself in their mindset, like what they believe, but what he was talking about in this particular interview was how, especially in these, if we all believe we're in the latter days, this is why the elite, and we could say the tares, are so obsessed with trying to achieve immortality. The Ray Kurzweils and people like that. I'm not going to say that he's a terror or not. I don't know. That's between him and God. But maybe he is, maybe he isn't. But whatever, he's advancing their agenda either way. Is that these people are in a mad rush to achieve immortality. Of course, we would say parenthetically apart from Christ. And so they're doing everything they can with, alchemical and occultic type transhumanist, means to achieve that end. And I believe it's because, they know that's their only chance for immortality is if they can find a way to create it themselves. And it also would involve killing God. As ridiculous as that sounds, the audacity and hubris of these people knows no limit. It is the spirit of Nimrod. That was Nimrod's plan. He's like, well, yeah, you're going to wipe out the world. We're going to take you out,
Right.
And, Nimrod's ambition with the Tower of Babel, as we've seen in a number of texts we've read right here on this program that we're doing, his stated objective was to kill God. And if you read Revelation 19:19, that's still their objective. Nothing's changed. They, in order for them to escape their judgment, they have to kill God and achieve another means of immortality. We, of course, biblically speaking, know both of those goals are ridiculous and not obtainable, but it's not stopping them from trying.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that again is the whole objective of the son of the morning in Isaiah 14. Is to be like the Most High and to replace him and to divert worship of humanity from the Most High and the Godhead to that of himself, and to deceive everybody and to lead everybody astray and to render himself in all that worship. And in Revelation 12, that old serpent, that ancient dragon who deceiveth the whole world. And so, the strong delusion, all that is playing part. Even the whole purpose of scientism and the heliocentric worldview, in my opinion, is to establish in basis that the ancient aliens are from some faraway place, that they came here long time ago, seeded humankind, jumped the gun on evolution, mixing in whatever way themselves and genetically, as it says in Daniel, they shall intermingle themselves amongst the seed of men. And the Emerald Tablets speak about this, how they took over the councils, as far as the leaders and the rulers of humanity, and to take over the destiny and the fate. All of that is found in all of these different manuscripts, and even the Bible, and the whole strong delusion, because they have no love of the truth. I definitely think that's why we see cosmology as such an important aspect of discerning truth in this day and age. Otherwise, it just would not make sense. But certainly the whole ancient aliens theory, so many people are embracing it. So many people are speaking about it, and now we have all of these individuals being so very well researched and respected in their fields, and they are openly concluding, especially a lot of the Catholic astronomers, and those people that are and they are clearly saying that Genesis interpreted correctly shows that the Elohim, the ancient aliens, created us, and that's where modern humanity came from, is the ancient aliens seeding us long ago and returning now even to save us from ourselves.
Yeah, I mean, this is what frustrates me about Christians that are still embracing the standard cosmological model. I mean, it's just so frustrating to me, is that there are whole ministries out there that are dedicated to destroying the evolutionary thesis, which I applaud them for. I think that's fantastic. But they do so while still embracing cosmology. It's like, I talk about it, that like Kent Hovind, he's shown us in no uncertain, he's got a whole lengthy series of videos showing how they lie to us about biology, how they lie to us about geology, how they lied to us about archaeology and pickenology. They lied to us about all of it. So why then are you giving cosmology a pass? It's the same people.
Yeah.
These same people that these other ministries have done a great job of proving they lie to us on a regular basis. They're giving them a pass on cosmology. And all these other ministries that like they're embracing the heliocentric cosmological model while accepting hollow earth. And I'm like, guys, you're like 6 inches from the finish line.
Right.
One more step. Just take one more step, because the last piece of the puzzle is breaking that cosmological worldview. Once you destroy that, everything on their side crumbles and is exposed for the fraud that it is.
Right. Which is why it's so important to, in my opinion, to look into and to consider, even though, yes, we did ridicule it as, lunatic fringe as well, but once you do have an open mind and examine it with an open heart, and immediately learning, there is no curvature. Water does not curve and cannot adhere to a ball. The physics are, impossible. It comes together so very quickly, yet it's just difficult for people to overcome their bias and their conditioning, their mind control and indoctrination. And because of that, so many just will not take that extra step, will not make that that journey, that step into truth.
Well, you have to literally want that worldview to be true, the cosmological worldview that we've been taught.
Right.
We were raised with a globe in our classroom since we were in nursery school. It's on every TV show and movie that we've watched. It's it's pushed on us in every way from every direction. And of course, our heads are filled with Star Trek and Star Wars and boldly going where no one has gone before and galaxies far, far away, and we love all that stuff.
Right.
So it's because we love all that stuff, and we do. Look, I was chief among them.
Yeah.
We love that stuff so much that we are imposing it onto the Bible. And even in the interview that I did with Robert Sungenis, Dr. Sungenis, on geocentricity, we were right before our break. I was going to a break, and he was getting a little upset, and he's like, because you believe the Bible says this, you're twisting everything else to fit your belief. And then we went to break, and I felt like saying, if we weren't going to break, I felt like saying, well, you're doing the exact opposite.
Right.
You want all that stuff. I see what the Bible says, and so that is forcing me, if I accept the Bible as my source for truth, then everything's got to bend to that. But you're doing the exact opposite, and as most other people are too. I mean, nearly everybody is. They are forcing the scriptures to bend the knee to what they want to be true.
Yes.
And I'm like, look, guys, if words mean things, you can't get the firmament to fit your ideology. It just doesn't work.
Right.
There's no way you can get the firmament to. I mean, that's why, you know, in the later years of my research on this, I just started concentrating my efforts just on that issue alone, because, you know, you just slam into this thing. What is it, like verse 6, I think, in Genesis 1. It's pretty quick, whatever it is. You know, you're pretty quick into the narrative when you slam into this thing. We have to deal with it. And you can't make that word represent air, gas in the vacuum of space. Not in Hebrew, definitely not in Greek, certainly not in Latin, and not in English either, even though they've tried to with throwing the word expanse in there now instead of firmament. I'm like, no, guys, it doesn't work that way.
Yes, hard, rigid, firm, rakia,
His throne is sitting on top of the thing. It's holding the waters back. It's attached to the earth. I mean, come on.
Yes.
There's so many things about it. It just makes you want to bang your head.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well. We rabbit trailed.
You want to try to... rabbit trails. You know, and it's beautiful that we are able to go down so many, because I think it does help, you know, the listening audience, for us to rant and to cover so much truth that others are unwilling to even touch with a 10-foot pole, you know. I love the rants and the chats and the conversations, but certainly, do you want to continue with the Jubilees or Jasher?
I Jubilees 34 pretty quickly gets into the selling of Joseph, where Joseph is sold into slavery in chapter 34. So I would say, let's hold off. Even though the beginning of it looks like it gets into the wars a bit, but it pretty quickly gets into Joseph and Shechem and Dothan and all that. So we're not there yet in Genesis. So we got about 3 minutes before the break, I think. So I would say, when we come back from the break, I can read Genesis 36, I think, and maybe 36 and 37, because 36, this is all the names. The whole chapter is names. That's just great. But
lots of fun.
Lots of fun. The names, the Dukes of Hazzard of Esau, and then 37 is where Jacob, I think, is sold into slavery. 37. So, what segment are we in? Are we in the second hour right now?
The final. Yeah, this is going to be the final segment.
Wow.
So maybe Genesis and the Targum, and that should be a wrap.
I guess so. All right, so I'll plan on... I should be able to get through 36 and 37.
All right, sounds good.
In Genesis, and then you can read the Targum, and that'll probably, if this is the last segment, right?
This is. I mean, it's gone by so very quickly, as it always does.
Yeah. Well, in the remaining time that we have left here, you mentioned one of your books. Where can people get those books? You know, for people, everybody's listening to your channel, I'm sure all knows, but for people who are listening on my channel, where can they go to get those resources?
Yeah, sure. For people that are interested in any of the books that I've written, even the Aramaic and Palestinian Targum, which is available, sacredwordpublishing.com. You can, there's a tab with just my name, and you can find all the books that I've authored. I'm up to 36 now, but this is the Great Contest 2 is the 12th book. And the first one, the Great Contest 1, is War in Heaven, and it breaks down how the war in heaven led to what is the enmity between the seed lines, and how the division of light and darkness, the rebellion of the angels, led to even the destruction of the first world age. So all of that is covered in that manuscript. And then the Great Contest 2, definitely, if you're interested in the Bloodline series, that book has all of the sources for this particular topic and information. And I even cover in the very last chapter how the serpent seed survived the flood of Noah's day. And the let both grow together until the time of the end. So many people believe that the seed of Cain, even if he was of the wicked one, that they were wiped out in the flood, but that's not true. There was a remnant, as there was of the giants, a remnant that was allowed continuance. And Christ also said, in the parable of the sower, to allow both to grow together until the time of the end. It would be his return, his second advent, that would find separation as far as the harvest, with the wheat and the tares, the goat and the sheep. And as I said, the Targum also in Genesis 3, 4, and 5, in that version, which is 2,000 years older than the King James, it dates back to the 4th century BC. It also contains this information. All right, we'll be right back for the final segment.
From the dawn of man, we have turned to nature to help attain balance within ourselves. But somewhere, we lost our way. Western culture is once again remembering the healing benefits of CBD, the non-psychoactive component of the hemp plant. That's why more and more people who use CBD report relief from inflammation and chronic pain, balanced blood sugar and cardiovascular system, relief from muscle tensions, tremors, migraines, headaches, anxiety, depression, and the list goes on. The big question is, where do you get it? IALife is a 99% pure CBD oil made with all organic ingredients, and it's available to TFR listeners worldwide. If you use coupon code TFR at checkout, you'll get $5 towards your order. Head on over to ialife.com now. That's AYA life.com.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies in a capsule.
It's a great product. And the one thing I like about it the most is that when you open the bottles, you can smell like the scent of the fruits and veggies. It's no genius thing to it. It's really just fruits and veggies, which everyone needs. And you guys kind of put it in a way where you can take it easy and you can get it, and it's natural, and that's what I like about it. I like the product, and I've taken it, and it's definitely made me feel a lot better. I'm a healthy person to begin with, but it's definitely good prevention, and it's definitely gives me energy, and I feel like it's a natural thing. I like it. I really do.
For a limited time, use discount code TALK to receive a 50% discount on your first preferred whole health system and have it shipped to you free. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go online to balanceofnature.com. Again, use discount code TALK.
For 5,000 years, the world was ruled with wooden ships by one man. 242 years ago, a small group of free men crafted a new nation built on liberty and freedom. Global elites have been fighting to destroy this new nation called America ever since. Based on actual events, Charm of Favor tells a true story of how they corrupted the election system. They infiltrated federal agencies and murdered witnesses, judges, and even presidents to keep from being caught. Now, the largest and wealthiest crime syndicate the world has ever known has been drawn out of the shadows. They have killed hundreds of Americans and recently attempted to assassinate half our congressmen. Still, they escape arrest through an almost supernatural charm of favor. Read Charm of Favor and be prepared to open your eyes to what may lie just around the corner. Charm of Favor is available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
No hate, no hype, no fear. Real people, real radio.
welcome back everybody for a final segment. As usual, the show has flown by, but we'll try to cover Genesis 36 and 37. Rob?
Real quick before we do, though, just for the sake of some people that don't understand the word Targum, don't confuse that with Talmud. Targums are just it's just the Hebrew word for translation. The King James Bible,
Aramaic.
Yeah, the King James Bible is a Targum. In the context of what we're talking about, the Targums are the Aramaic, which predate even the Septuagint. So just to clarify that. But something else that occurred to me that I never thought of until our last discussion here before the break was, the question always comes up, well, if Yahuwah was destroying the Nephilim, if the flood of Noah was to get rid of the Nephilim, why did he allow them back? My thesis is that the seed carried forward on the ark, and people are like, well, why would God do that? I'm like, well, you believe the angels came back and mated with women. Why would God allow that? We both have the same problem, but the thing we both have to deal with, no matter how you believe they came back, whatever your theory is, the fact remains they came back. That they were before the flood and after the flood. So all of us have to deal with that issue. But the question of why, the thought that just occurred to me right before the break was that Yahuwah, he had to allow serpent seed to continue after the flood because of the prophecy that he made in Genesis 3:15. Right. I never thought of that literally until about 4 or 5 minutes ago, that he had to allow them because he said that the prophecy that was given in Genesis 3:15 was that there would be two seed lines, the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And up to that point, the serpent seed had not yet bruised the heel, and the seed of the woman had not yet crushed the serpent's head. So,
exactly.
He had to allow it to come through both. However you believe it happened, both seeds had to come through the flood in order for that prophecy to eventually manifest.
Right, absolutely. And also, the whole theme of the giants and how they would rule over and took over the land of Canaan, and that the Most High Yahuwah would glorify his name, but not only liberating the Israelites from the bondage and their enslavement to Egypt, this powerful, mighty pagan nation, but that he would also lead them into reclaiming their inheritance, as the land that was given to Shem, which was usurped by the Canaanites. They would go in there, and the prophecy in the promise to Abraham, that would all be fulfilled. And in destroying the giants who were, feared, and they were men of renown. They were of giant stature. Their cities, even their fruit, everything, much larger. He would strike fear in their hearts, even by just destroying Sihon and Og, who it speaks about how the other giant nations didn't even come forth because they thought that Sihon and Og would be enough to crush the Israelites. And then when they heard of their defeat, by the time Rahab, the spies snuck in, Rahab told them that the fear of the Almighty and the Israelites were already on the hearts, and that she knew that they were doomed. And so, and I'll share one passage really quickly from the Targum in Genesis chapter 15. It says, "And Og came, who had been spared from the giants that died in the deluge, and had ridden protected upon the top of the ark, and sustained with food by Noah, not being spared through high righteousness, but that the inhabitants of the world might see the power of the Lord, and say, were there not giants who in the first times rebelled against the Lord of the world and perished from the earth?" And so you see, again, it's not because of righteousness, but the Most High was going to show his power and authority, which certainly the whole scenario of freeing the Israelites and they're taking over the land of Canaan, that struck fear into not only all of the giants, but all of the pagan cultures and civilizations that were surrounding Israel.
Yeah, absolutely. That was in my Archon Invasion book and subsequent teachings I did on it, was the point that I used to make, is that, Yahuwah got the glory for wiping out the giants in the pre-flood world. And he did so in the post-flood world through his chosen people. He still got the glory, but he used his people to do it. Right. He raised up, the Caleb and the Joshua and the Davids and, that whole group of mighty men that, and even in the case of the Exodus, you see that he sends the angel of the Lord ahead of them to take many of them out.
Right.
I believe he cleared out the big ones first and left the small ones for the rest of them, so they wouldn't lose.
Yes.
But small, I say that, kind of in air quotes, because they were easily I would guess between 12 and 36 feet tall were the ones that were left. Yes. The ones that he took out were probably between 36 and 100 feet tall, because the Amorites described as as tall as a cedar tree.
Cedar trees,
which, a modest cedar tree gets to about 36 feet tall, but the cedars of Lebanon got to 150 feet tall. So,
right. Yes.
I tend to believe that the angel of the Lord went and took out the bigger ones, and left the 12 to 36 footers for his people, which was certainly still
intimidating.
Very intimidating. I mean, the spies said they felt like grasshoppers by comparison.
Right.
And that's a pretty serious statement there. Like, if you look at a grasshopper, look how big it is to you, and they were comparing themselves to grasshoppers to the size of these people, so they were still pretty huge.
Yes.
Now, that was before the 40 years in the wilderness. So, my suspicion is that, if you look at the size of a good sized grasshopper compared to you, that's probably you compared to a 150 footer. The angel of the Lord took those out, first, and then 40 years after the initial Numbers 13 spies going to the land, 40 years later, they're going in and taking out the 12 to 36 footers, which are still pretty big people. I mean, that's huge.
Challenging.
Yeah. I mean, because it's not just height; it's mass also. So when I started modeling that in 3D software, just taking a person and scaling them, a 6-foot person, making, let's say a Goliath at 12 feet. Well, that's two people, standing on top of one on top of another's head, right? 2 6-foot tall people. Well, that's tall, but he's also proportionately massive. Also, he's got mass to him. That's a 12-footer. When you do 3 times that, that's just wow. I mean, I think we were talking about it one of the previous shows that I had been watching the King Kong movies and Godzilla. Well, I mean, that's about what you're looking at. I mean, these things are, those massive. Are huge. Those guys, those are like 400 feet tall, I think, one of them. Anyway, you got to paint this picture in your mind that giants were giants. They were big, and Yahuwah was using his people to tell the rest of the world, yep, they're mine, and when they put their faith and trust and obedience in me, look at what they can do to you. And that's why everybody, their reputation would precede them. It's like, how many times have we read, even just in the last couple of weeks, the shows that we were doing, like the people are like, the Hebrews, they're coming to town.
Right.
The fear of the Lord through his people was consistently manifested in the post-flood world, where in the pre-flood world it looks like, in the pre-flood world he has them wipe each other out. The Clash of the Titans, exactly. Let them fight each other off.
Right. Yeah, the whole account is amazing. I mean, even the fact that there were giants, on the earth before and after, and that all of this is recorded into the Bible, into the scriptures, and that even in this day and age, looking at and reading the Solomon Island mysteries and, even the backdrop for seed.
Yeah.
I mean, this is so supernaturally amazing to even consider. I mean, you think of all the movies that are out there and the greatest Hollywood script, and yet this story defeats all of that. You know.
Yeah, and it's never been told. No one's ever. Well, that's what we're trying to do, guys. You got to get behind it out there, people.
Right.
Because we want to depict it the way it was. I mean, epic.
Right. Absolutely.
All right, let me switch over here. Genesis 36. Oh boy, all the names. Here we go. Now these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. Esau took his wives of the daughters of Canaan, Adah, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Aholibama, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zibeon the Hivite, and Bashemath, Ishmael's daughter, sister of Nebajoth. And Adah bare to Esau Eliphaz, and Bashemath bare Reuel, and Aholibama bare Jeush, and Jaalam, and Korah. These are the sons of Esau, which were born unto him in the land of Canaan. Okay. And Esau took his wives and his sons and his daughters. Did I just skip over? Okay. And Esau took his wives and his sons and his daughters and all the persons of his house and his cattle and all his beasts and all his substance which he had got in the land of Canaan, and went into the country from the face of his brother Jacob. And their riches were more than that they might dwell together, and the land wherein they were strangers could not bear them because of their cattle. Thus dwelt Esau in Mount Seir. Esau is Edom. And these are the generations of Esau, the father of the Edomites, in Mount Seir. These are the names of Esau's sons: Eliphaz, the son of Adah, the wife of Esau; Reuel, the son of Bashemath, the wife of Esau. And the sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, and Gatam, and Kenaz. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife. And these are the sons of Reuel, Nahath, and Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were the sons of Bashemath, Esau's wife. And these were the sons of Aholibama, the daughter of Anah, the daughter of Zibeon, Esau's wife. And she bare to Esau Jeush, and Jaalam, and Korah. These were dukes of the sons of Esau. The sons of Eliphaz, the firstborn son of Esau, Duke Teman, Duke Omar, Duke Zepho, and Duke Kenaz. Duke Korah, Duke Gatam, and Duke Amalek. These are the dukes that came from Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These were the sons of Adah. And these are the sons of Reuel, Esau's son, Duke Nahath, Duke Zerah, Duke Shamath, Duke Mizah. These are the dukes that came from Reuel in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Bashemath, Esau's wife. And these are the sons of Aholibama, Esau's wife, Duke Jeush, Duke Jaalam, Duke Korah. These were the dukes that came from Aholibama, the daughter of Anah, Esau's wife. These are the sons of Esau, who is Edom, and these are their dukes. These are the sons of Seir the Horite, who inhabited the land, Lotan and Shobal, and Zibeon and Anah, and Dishon and Ezer and Dishan. These are the dukes of the Horites, the children of Seir in the land of Edom. And the father of Lotan were Hori and Hemam, and Lotan's sister was Timnah. And the children of Shobal are these: Alvan and Manahath and Ebal, Shephel and Onam. And these are the children of Zibeon, both Adah and Anah. This was that Anah that found the mules in the wilderness, as he fled the asses of Zibeon his father. So this is the reference that Joshua unpacked about the Yamim.
Right.
So
yeah, those weird creatures.
See, this gives credibility for a book like Joshua, because right here Moses says, it is this Ana that found the mules in the wilderness as he fled the asses of Zebulun his father. This is a statement saying, this is that guy. And everybody reading this said, oh yeah, we know that story.
Right.
So this is another case where we have an internal witness, where a reference is made that only if we read this other book would the audience get. If you don't read that other book, the audience is clueless about this statement right here. Completely clueless.
Absolutely.
And the children of Ana were these, Dishon and Aholibama, the daughter of Ana. And these are the children of Dishon, Hemdan and Ishban, and Ithran and Chiran. The children of Ezer are these, Bilhan and Zaavan and Achan. The children of Dishan are these, Uz and Aran. These are the dukes that came of the Horites, Duke Lotan, Duke Shobal, Duke Zibion, Duke Ana. Duke Dishan, Duke Ezer, Duke Dishan, or Dishon, Duke Ezer, Duke Dishan. These are the dukes that came of Hori among the dukes in the land of Seir. And these are the kings that reigned in the land of Edom, before there reigned any king over the children of Israel. And Bela, the son of Beor, reigned in Edom, and the name of his city is Dinhabah. And Bela died, and Jobab, son of Zerah of Basra, reigned in his stead. And I think this is the Jobab that is Job of the book of Job.
Mm-hmm.
And Jobab died, and Husham of the land of Timni, of Timani, reigned in his stead. And Husham died, and Hadad, the son of Bedad, who smote Midian in the field of Moab, reigned in his stead. And the name of his city is Avith. And Hadad died, and Samlah of Masrekah reigned in his stead. And Samlah died, and Saul of Rehoboth by the river reigned in his stead. And Saul died, and Baal-Hanan, the son of Akbor, reigned in his stead. And Baal-Hanan, the son of Akbor, died, and Hadar reigned in his stead. And the name of his city was Pau, and his wife's name was Mehetabel, the daughter of Metred, the daughter of Mezahab. And these are the names of the dukes that came of Esau according to their families after their places by their names: Duke Timnah, Duke Alva, Duke Jethath, Duke Aholibama, Duke Elah, Duke Pinon, Duke Kenaz, Duke Teman, Duke Mibzar, Duke Magdiel, Duke Iram. These are the dukes of Edom according to their habitations in the land of their possessions. He is Esau, the father of the Edomites, the Dukes of Hazard. All right. Whew, got through that one. All right, I got time. I can do this one. We may not get to the Targum. We'll just start off on my show next week. If we need to. Okay, and Jacob dwelt in the land wherein his father was a stranger in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren. And the lad was with the sons of Bilhah, and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives. And Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him, and could not speak peaceably unto him. And Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf arose, and all stood upright. And behold, your sheaves stood round about, and made obeisance to my sheaf. And his brethren said to him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us, or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dream and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told it his brethren. You'd think he'd learn, right?
Right.
And said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more, and behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and his brethren, and his father rebuked him and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee on the earth, to the earth? And his brethren envied him, but his father observed the saying. And his brethren went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said unto Joseph, Do not thy brethren feed the flock in Shechem? Come, I will send thee unto them. And he said to him, Here am I. And he said to him, Go, I pray thee, see whether it be well with thy brethren, and well with the flocks, and bring me word again. So he sent him out of the vale of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. And a certain man found him, and behold, he was wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, What seekest thou? And he said, I seek my brethren. Tell me, I pray thee, where they feed their flocks. And the man said, They are departed thence, for I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. And Joseph went after his brethren, and found them in Dothan. And when he saw them afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. And they said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. Come now, therefore, and let us slay him, and cast him into some pit. And we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. And it came to pass, when Joseph was come unto his brethren, that they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors that was on him. And they took him and cast him into a pit, and the pit was empty, there was no water in it. And they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, a company of Ishmaelites came from Gilead with their camels, bearing spicery and balm and myrrh, going to carry it down to Egypt. And Judah said unto his brethren, What profit is it if we slay our brother, and conceal his blood? Come, and let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh. And his brethren were content. And there passed by Midianites, merchantmen, and they drew and lifted up Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. And they brought Joseph into Egypt. And Reuben returned unto the pit, and behold, Joseph was not in the pit, and he rent his clothes. And he returned unto his brethren, and said, The child is not, and I, whither shall I go? And they took Joseph's coat, and killed a kid of the goats, and dipped the coat in the blood. And they sent the coat of many colors, and they brought it to their father, and said, This have we found. Know now whether it be thy son's coat or no. And he knew it, and said, It is my son's coat. An evil beast hath devoured him. Joseph is without doubt rent in pieces. And Jacob rent his clothes, and put sackcloth upon his loins, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted, and said, For I will go down into the grave unto my son mourning. Thus his father wept for him. And the Midianites sold him into Egypt unto Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh's, and captain of the guard.
Perfect. That worked out perfect.
Yep, we got like 2 minutes before the break. So I know that, boy, it goes into a lot more detail in the Joshua account. I'm going to be curious what the Targum says. So next week on my show, we can start you off with the Targum version of those 2 chapters. And anything you might have, maybe in the Legends of the Jews, I'd like to see what they have to say.
Yeah, I've got it already set for those 2 accounts, so we'll definitely pick it up and add more detail. I hope everybody enjoyed the readings. Certainly, adding all these parallel accounts does bring forth much more of the story.
Oh yeah, I'm enjoying it too. I've looked over some of this stuff before, Joshua and Jubilees. Of course, when I published it, in the volume that we published. But I was more just kind of skimming through it, making sure it was generally formatted right. I wasn't really like intentionally reading it like we're doing here. So that's why so many things are jumping out at me that I didn't catch, when I was just skimming it before.
Right. Yeah. Oh, you never did tell me what your friend thought about on the priesthood of Jesus Christ.
Well, he didn't. Well, after the show, I emailed him. I sent him the email that you sent me. So.
Okay.
I'll probably ask him about it on this coming Saturday's show. So we do the virtual house church from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Central Time on Saturdays. So
okay, right on.
Yeah, I'll probably ask him. I'm sure he's gonna be. I mean, that was a pretty detailed account, even though it's not very long.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty amazing. That this was hidden, and even though the Pharisees, the Jews, knew, but they still, they wanted to hide the truth and not reveal it, and that they would even go to war, to keep it all hidden.
Crazy stuff.
All right, brother.
All right,
Another great show.
Another great show. See you next week.
All right. Be blessed.